Shabbat Shalom. There is a story about Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak Kook, who was the very first chief rabbi of pre-state Palestine, of what would become Israel. And that in 1913, he was going around the land to the far-flung settlements all around the north in the hope of speaking with the different pioneers about religious observance and purity. And there was one very little settlement that was struggling. It was near the Kinneret in the Sea of Galilee. It was very small, made up with about 40 settlers from St. Louis and a few others. And they were completely secular, and they heard that there were dignitaries coming to visit close by. So it was Shabbat, and they sent a delegation to try and convince Rav Kook and the others to come to their kibbutz. So when they arrived, he was Orthodox, really ultra-Orthodox, as we would call today. And he didn't want to give them his answer because then they would encourage them to return on Shabbat to their kibbutz. So he waited until Shabbat was over, until they did Havdalah, and he said, I will come. And so Rav Kook arrived at their small, failing yeshuv, and he started to sing and dance with them, as was his custom, and telling them, you're building the land, you're building all of it. God is building with you the Galilee, opening his heart to them. Then there was a certain moment where two of the guards came in, and in those days, pre-state, the guards wore Arab cloaks and kafiyehs, and he saw the two of them, and he said to them, let's exchange our dress. And so they went into the office, and he said, I want to try on your uniform. And so he gave them his rabbinic garb, and he took their guard clothes, and he slung the rifle over his shoulder, and he said he cut a very imposing and handsome presence. And he said to them, holy brothers, builders of the land, just as I am not embarrassed to wear your garments, so too I request, do not be embarrassed by the Torah of Israel. I wear your clothes and you wore mine, and so it should also be on the inside, together in our hearts. And then he concluded his address with the following request. He said, I will not remove the uniform of the guard until you all promise to me, all of you, with one heart and a willing soul, that you will fulfill my request. And I ask you that you be shomrim, that you be guards over the pintele yid, your inner Jewish spark. And the answer is one, we promise. And so they used to say that whenever Rav Kook used to go visit all the pioneers, he would dance with them, as mentioned, and even those who desecrated Shabbat and Yom Kippur purposefully. He didn't care for any of traditional Judaism. He still had such a love for them and a dedication to the Jewish, he saw their dedication for the Jewish state. And he valued them, and he loved them. He said they were full of divine inspiration. He even felt they were bringing the Messiah, not all the religious people that he lived with. He said they're bringing the Messiah because of their love for the state. And he, who was one of the most brilliant minds of the generation and connected to all, by family, to all the big rabbinic lineages, he was almost excommunicated in his own world because of how he loved and danced with the early Zionist pioneers. And what a difference to the situation in Israel now. And one can say that those chalutzim, that those pioneers, are the direct descendants of what we read in the news this week, the pilots of the Israeli Air Force who were the elite who protected the state in some of the most intense and difficult operations, and who sacrificed so much to give the best years of their youth to the nation. And because this week they stated their refusal to continue to come up for their reserve duty and to serve the government because of what they perceived as extremism and the judicial overhaul. And so this week shows the danger when you have a whole segment of the society, one that's a pillar of the country, to starting to lose hope in the direction of the whole. And how central all those different parts of the nation are to everything happening in Israel. And that spirit of the chalutzim, too, should not be taken for granted. And our fear is what would happen to the country if it was no longer part of the nation. And Rav Kook, he felt the seculars, pioneers, that they too were making a spiritual contribution. And even though he might not understand all of their ways of life and they lacked the religious expression that he loved so much, but he wanted to try on their garb. And he understood that part of being a vehicle for greatness and for the divine is about humility and compassion and loving kindness and having a wide and open heart that could include others in it. And perhaps this is what is lacking in Israel today. And when that vision of love of all of Israel turns into the love of just those who are fulfilling the narrowest interpretation of the Torah exactly as you think it should be, and when the spiritual contributions to the state become only about who is most in fear of the laws, as they have been for thousands of years, and what is open and expansive and joyful becomes narrow and concretized. Right, Rav Kook, he connected the very flowering of the redemption and to this vision of love of all of Israel. And that's what it was about for him. It was about the love of all of Israel and even love of all of humanity and of all the universe, as he wrote in this very beautiful fourfold song, in which he talks about the different songs that every human being sends out into the universe. And he says, and there is a person who rises with all these songs together in one ensemble, so that they give forth their voices, and they all sing their songs sweetly, each supplying its fellow with fullness and love. The song of the soul, the song of a nation, and also the song of humanity, and the song of the world, they all mix together with this person at every moment and at all times. On the other hand, his son, who was also Rav Kook II, Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook, he connected that vision, and he said it was only about the land. The land of Israel became the object of it all, every inch of it holy, and the vision became concrete. And perhaps we can say that this is where it started to go wrong. And Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook, Rav Kook II, he is the spiritual father of the settler movement. His yeshiva is still the center point of all of it, not the most extreme parts, but still of the movement overall, and became the foundation for hundreds of thousands of settlers who went into the land and built settlements, seeing it as the land of the Bible, of our descendants, completely focused on the spiritual power of the land that they were now building on. But along with that concretization of the vision came many other concretizations and narrowness. Who should be on the land and who should not be on the land? Who is us and who is them? And that we are the deliverers of the land. And who are doing the holiest work of anybody in the land of Israel? And who should be danced with and who should not be danced with? And reviving very ancient, concrete ideas of what it means to be an ally of the Jewish people, and of what should be done to enemies, and who the Palestinians are. And at this point, we can look and say there was a lot of negativity and negative issues that came in, including hate of others. And it is the same with the ultra-Orthodox. They concretize what it means to be following God and letting go of that humility of being a divine instrument. And it became all about the Gevordik part of Judaism, the powerful part of Judaism, strictness and aggressiveness and easily angered. And that's a powerful place to live in. It gave them a sense of self-righteousness. And that is hard to give up. Those feelings have so much power, they make one think that one is right. And yet, how can you be a divine instrument without humility, without loving kindness, desire to serve others? And once we are stuck in such places, it is very hard to emerge. And this is the story of our parashah, the golden calf. After Moses was gone, right, as the Torah says, Moses was tearing on top of Mount Sinai. According to Midrash, he spent an extra hour up there. The people began to worry. And with the experience of Sinai already fading, they lost the vision, and they got sucked into that lowest self. And then it was the whole disaster, and they fell into the most concrete parts of themselves, and they could not get out. They built a golden calf. And they got sucked into the power of all those low places and the power of them. And suddenly they were begging Aaron to build them a golden calf, to build them a god. Just a few weeks after God had told them, you shall have no other God but me. And they lost all the boundaries, lost all their moral inhibitions. But what they needed to do was just hold on to the vision. Just as what we need to do right now as a Jewish people is hold on to that vision, the vision of Israel as a place of love of the Jewish people and of all humanity. And for the children of Israel in that moment of the golden calf, what happened? They had those parts of themselves, the slave mentality that festered for so long, and they came out with great force, and they lost control. And perhaps this is the same here. We've allowed parts of Judaism to fester that have been part of us for a very long time. As mentioned last week, part that sees chosenness as supremacy, the part that sees hatred of all others because they hate us. And they've been finding expression in, unfortunately, mixed with the power of newfound sovereignty over the land, of returning to our biblical land for many decades. And now it's become so powerful, it's too strong. We can't control it anymore. In the end, one has to believe that hate will only tear each other apart, but how much of the country will go down with it. And so our contemplation is the same as last week. We're still in the dovetails of Purim, to keep looking at Amalek without and within and removing it. And maybe with this week too, with this special Shabbat of the Parah Adumah, of the red heifer that had these purifying effects, finding that vessel of purification and sometimes believing it has to come to the surface before it can be removed. But holding on to that vision, because it is that vision that keeps in place all the safeguards, all the morality, all the ethics we so deeply believe in. And not losing hope or giving into hatred or small-mindedness, but holding on to that ever expansive and beautiful power of love. Dancing with others, trying on their clothes, inner and outer, including in our love and in our embrace of all those whom we think differently with. Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the universe, as Israel and our whole world seems to be stuck in Purim, upside down. V'hafuchu, as we say about Purim. Help bring it right side up. Restore love. Restore vision. Help us heal the wound. Shabbat Shalom.